we breathe, the different techniques which we use, the organic fabric, everything. We have the very air which we breathe, the water which we drink, the different trees around us, everything is an effort. And then sometimes we take it for granted. And since because we got it easier, we don't actually give that importance of, okay, this is something important because we got it easy. So it is always important to understand that what we have from our ancestors or from the earlier generation, it is important to inherit it or respect it. It is not just important that you inherit heritage. You have to earn it, you have to respect it, you have to acknowledge it, you have to respect the different people associated with it. And then only it is not just about inheritance, it is about understanding it better. And then there was a discussion we had with 12-year-old children about heritage and ethics and all that. It was a workshop. And then we were telling the children that this was happening, and then we were showing them different pictures. We did that workshop in terms of storytelling, narrative, and all that. And one of the kids asked us, if so many things are known to the adults, why are lot of buildings not taken care of? So you're telling us so many things. So there are so many advantages to it. And if everyone has thought this, why are so many buildings not taken care of? This is a question a lot of us have. And I feel there is enough awareness about heritage everywhere. But the thing is, are we understanding heritage as a treasure, or are we understanding heritage as a business? There is a huge difference. And why we need to look at that is that ethics is something which comes out on how we perceive the environment. What do we see? It depends on our social mindset. How do we look at people is how do we look at buildings. And then sometimes these decisions on how we perceive environment decides our actions, sometimes inactions, sometimes misactions, sometimes actions. This is very important. Doing a right action is one thing, and doing something which is not right is something. And then inaction is also an important part. Aren't we doing anything to it? And it is a very it is like a column. The Indian art, Indian floral, it is exactly like a column. Ethics and heritage and tourism, it is all connected. But how do we look at it as a part? So this is one image which I feel makes a lot of connection between that. Ethics, economics, it's not that this is wrong or it shouldn't be monetized or it shouldn't be, but there should be a line of understanding. So that line of understanding is how much is too much, how less is too less. For example, what can we do? What is the best thing as an individual? This question you would have heard from your students, or you would have heard from your friends, or whenever you speak about heritage to your friends and family and team members, or like, why is this place like that? Why is it not taken care of? Why is it like that? And in that case, there will be this question of what can I do? I can just shout as an individual, what can I do? And then there is this other part which says that it is to be taken care of. Let me put my efforts, let me take care of it and all that. In this, you can divide this point of view into two. One is looking at exactly like how we looked at the window. You can either look at it as uh, something which is very exotic, something which has a lot of value, something which is very unique, something which is very different. On the other side, you can say it is completely looking very awkward. It doesn't make any sense, or it is already broken, it is already not in shape and all that. This window is like a metaphor for any heritage building or any heritage space which you see. It will either evoke this extreme response or this extreme response. But what we as professionals need to have is a balance outcome of, we always think about what, but what we need to think about is why. Why is it like that? Can there anything be done? And this is very important in terms of in terms of South Asian heritage, or especially Indian heritage, because public buildings or religious structures, that is one part. But India has a very high potential for household heritage. That is also a area with potential tourism, how do I say, which is also a potential tourism zone, household heritage or living heritage. How did people live? For example, the process of learning a cooking technique, the process of putting a column, the process of doing a particular ritual, teaching tourists how to do a particular plaster wall, working on a, or telling them how to do a particular weave in a fabric. How is organic cotton grown? How is a particular farming activity done? How is a mud floor done? How is a mud wall done? And who are the different artisans involved in that? What is the state of those artisans? And on one way, but what we need here is the fine line. That's why I want to mention these two lines. How much is too much? How less is too less? By how much is too much, I mean that how much of percentage, not about money. If it is 100%, your ethics of understanding them should be 60%, and then 40% should be listening to their stories. Even when this is reduced at one point, it may look, it may look like we are not respecting them, or we are kind of, I would like to use the word manipulating them. And this is not a word which I used. A lot of people said there are tourists coming in, there are tourist agencies coming in, there are people who do trails, there are so many things which are happening. But whether the residences are benefited, whether the artisans are benefited, whether the heritage is getting something. So there are equal balance to be maintained in so many facets of it. I would like to mention about one example. When we went to a small village, Shakespeare's village in UK, when I was doing my bachelor's, everything seemed, like, my point of view, super exotic. Everything was set, and then it was like, oh, such a beautiful place. This is where Shakespeare lived, and this is how they have taken care of it. Everything was there. But there was a person who was explaining to us. He was a person from that village itself, a student who was trained in showing us around. And it was a student day, so everything was free. But what we had to do was, instead of paying it back, we can volunteer as services to take care of that place, or to do a tour and all that. So this is also a way of passing on legacy. Because it is not just about people who can afford all that. How are you including the localites? How are you including the natives? How are you including? It should not just be about including itself. That is how the way should be. How are you making them a part of this? That is when it will gain authenticity, and that is when it will make a lot of sense. The wineries in France and the cheese making initiatives in France are very good example, because it is a major part of tourism. It is a major part of the economic driver of the country also. But how they have included, there are a few issues which they are trying to sort out as well. But it is a good example of how a native technique, it is for them, has been given a universal appeal, and how much they have taken effort. And by how less is too less, it is another question. How can we, there has been, when we consult for few heritage structures or heritage management, they say how low or how less can we involve the artisans or the natives, because they may not know English. And then whenever the our clients or someone asks this question, the first thing, our first response is, they are the torch bearers, or they are the actual how do I say, the authentic storytellers of the place. So it is important to make it accessible, make it inclusive, so that it makes a lot of sense. This is something we did. Hello? Yeah. Is the voice clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, yes. So, yeah. So, this is something which we did for the World Museum Day. And how should museums be after post COVID, and what are the different things which we can look at. This is kind of a heritage management mapping which every heritage institution or someone in relationship with a heritage institute or a small museum or someone can adopt. This is our perception of how museums could be. Why we wanted to do this was after COVID, post COVID, or we would say like we're going to live with COVID at least in the next few years. How are things going to change? There is going to be this mind lock about visiting places, touching objects, and the next big keyword is going to be touch surfaces. How are we going to redesign them? Door handles and then door jambs. We had a detailed presentation about this a couple of weeks back. I'll share the link. So on a brief note, all these touch surfaces, how are we going to respond to it? The design changes are going to be the next big thing. And this particular mapping can be done based on your requirements to any heritage structures. And it is also important that when we get into creating a product for example, a heritage walk as a product or a souvenir or an interactive show or a workshop, in terms of getting tourists to attend it, it is important that we map and have these things. One, you can either read it, you can take one column or one row or angularly based on the crux you want to use. For example, I'll take second row, reinvent, reinterpret, revive, which means consensus. So consensus means this particular horizontal column means when you have to have consensus, when you have to engage a lot of people or different stakeholders inside your product or your service, you need to reinvent, reinterpret, or revive. Or the other way to look at it is, if you want to reinvent your product because you feel it has to be improved, or if you want to reinterpret to understand that okay, this will make more sense if it is in this way, or if you want to revive a particular product, you need this consensus. You need different stakeholders to be involved. So I think after COVID, I mean, even before it was very important, but post COVID, heritage structures need, in terms of people, it needs a lot of commitment, it needs a lot of consensus, or getting a lot of stakeholders together with understanding and then collaborations. We have commitment, we have different stakeholders, but collaboration is something which we need to develop as a profession, not only in tourism industry or heritage, or in terms of heritage structures and all that. Generally, this collaborative projects or group projects are very less in India compared to the other countries. And that is the need of the day, because we need as much hands as possible to hold together and move forward, because that is the only way we can work towards preserving whatever we have. And then the other three aspects in terms of development is innovation, being inclusive, and integration. So being inclusive, you can divide it into four parts. One is involving every stakeholder. Second one is how inclusive is our heritage space or our product in the tourism industry. Are we potential, who are our potential clients? Who are we catering to? Whether it is wheelchair friendly, whether do we have a braille brochure? Do we have someone interpreting our products in terms of sign language? So when we started doing this for our heritage walks, for the first walk, sign language interpreting, we just had one person coming in. And then our team members, everyone said, no, no, let's go with this. We'll make sure any walk we have or any talk we do, we will make sure there is a sign language interpreter, and we will make sure that we carry the ramp everywhere so that if someone wants to join, also let them do it, and we'll also have a braille interpretation. And I think this can't happen in every other institution, because you need your team to understand your requirements. You need your team to get in line with what you actually want to do. Only when they understand your ideals or your common ideals, then there will be some change in your product. So being inclusive is another important aspect, both in terms of being ethical in tourism, and also being right in heritage management. So this is a chart which you can do. So the basic crux is museums are important. So museums are important in terms of innovation, being inclusive and integration. And you can either work it this way. Either if you want commitment, what are the things you should do? When you want commitment from your team, from your staffs, from your group, you need to acknowledge their work. You need to adopt their innovative ideas. You need to adapt to give change and listen to the team. That is important. Or if you want collaboration, you should be ready to engage with people. You should be having ideas which can entice them and excite them to work with you, or ideas which are very important, and you should also enable them to explore. So that's when collaboration works. Or when you want to have a good understanding of different good consensus with people, you should be ready to reinvent your ideas. You should be able to reinterpret different things and then revive proper ideas. So this can be this way also. When you need innovation, you need to engage, reinvent, and adapt. This is a very basic grid. This can be in multiples of 3, and then you can work it out based on size of your product, or size of the service you want to give, or it can also be changed based on the different crux of it. For example, it can be a product which is completely based on technology. So in that case, the entire thing will be shifted. So this is a very small. Any doubts about it, you can definitely ask. Should we keep the questions to the last? Hello? Hello, Shweta? Hello?
Yes, ma'am. We'll have the questions in the end of the session, ma'am.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So this is the last part of the presentation, and this is an assignment done by students of architecture from SAP, architectural conservation class. And this was not done recently. This was done a year back. And the idea was for them to choose a heritage prison or a heritage-based site. And then what they have to do is they have to uh, make the place more inviting for every other kind of tourist, not just a group of tourists, but every other stakeholder, from the people who are living in the city to people who are working in the campus, and then new visitors, and then people who come with not so much excitement. And that was the only base brief which was given. And what they did was they created a puzzle, and then they created a small kiosk kind of an idea where people could read the stories. And then they created an audiobook where there is already an audiobook in the museum. But this is about, you can, for every other building, there will be a QR code. And then if they kind of use their phones, they can read it. If someone doesn't have phone, there will also be maps and images and signages in different parts of the museum, and also different activities for it. So this is one thing, and this is the map which was created. Mapping something or a timeline of something may sound very simple and very basic, but lot of heritage structures and lot of heritage buildings throughout India don't have these two things, either a timeline map or a building map for it as a tool. Like there will be, but is it there in access of something? Is there a repository for it? Is there somewhere you can go and click and get the data out of it? So This is what they've done, and it is very relevant in terms of COVID, post-COVID museums now, because now people will be very scared to touch and understand different uh, aspects of it, kiosk and all that. So now the QR codes will be very useful. This is the other assignment from the same class. This is the central square, which they imagine. You can see, I don't know if it is very clear, 2040, they mentioned it as central bin. Are we putting all our ideas in the central plaza? Won't it become like the dustbin? That was their concept of it. So this was a very unique idea for them, because uh, for me, the outcome of the assignment need not be a report or a presentation or something. It could just be a poem, or it could be a sketch, or it could be a photograph, or it could be a very interesting flyer like this, because you the ways of expression is very different for different kinds of people, and it is important that we understand it, and then we realize it, and then give it a go. This is one of my favorites. And then the other one was they worked on the Madras University. So this was like a beautiful. I've shown you parts of the assignments, few parts of it. There are other parts as well. So like a window board, which evokes nostalgia. So each window is like a memory of one person who either studied in the school, studied in the college, or there is a beautiful tea kada, which is outside the most. How do I say, the most unassuming place, but which has a lot of stories and nostalgia attached to it, because uh, one of the most basic mapping which we did back in early 2013-14 was mapping the different kadais in Ananagar, because we were researching on different kinds of heritage in Ananagar, and we realized that the different tea kadais in Ananagar was named as London, Japan, and then one was called the US, and one was called Hong Kong, and then there were 18 to 19 of that, 22 to be precise. And they had a story within each other, near to the school, near to the college, and all that. So all these tea kadais are something which we totally forget, no? So they have collected different stories on the memories of people in. So this was more like a installation. This was the small model which they did. And then the another group, two other groups. Postcards always have a way of attachment, right? So when we talk about souvenirs, sometimes that is also a very how much is too much, how less is too less. That there is also a fine line. Are you involving the people? Are you involving the people in which? So are we crediting photos which is taken, but have we taken permission of the particular household to take a picture, to take a particular uh, building model, so many things. So souvenirs is a very important catch point in terms of getting the permission from the people, getting understanding. So when we started doing souvenirs, we started involving the people from the household to make small cards, small notes about their memories, and then why do they have so much connect with the place and all that. So when these two groups came out with nice postcards and greeting card kind of structures, two different projects, and each of it had a beautiful essence. And the second assignment also was like you also was technology based, and what they did was they used again QR codes, with which you can see when you look at an old building, you can see how it was earlier. So that was another point. And again, in terms of post-COVID tourism and all that, this would play a major role. Without a person contact an app, or us giving a tour to a person completely remote in terms of phone or in terms of video, like we are doing this video today. And I would like to end my presentation with this particular image again. Nothing is too small, nothing is too big. Just our understanding about what heritage means will give us a lot of understanding of how heritage is to be. And it is important to respect, acknowledge, and listen to the local stories, local narratives, and that is when these things will make a lot of sense. And then, if there are any doubts, any questions, please feel free to raise the questions. And over to Shweta for taking it over. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. That was a very interesting session. So we'll.
Did I stop the screen share or it is still on? Did I
Yes,
stop
ma'am.
it?
The screen. Yes, ma'am. It has been stopped.
Okay, yes.
Yes. There is one participant, Mr. Meet. He
Mm-hmm.
has given a question. As the government
Okay.
is trying to sanitize all public places, would museums also be sanitized? If yes, then won't the sanitizing substance damage the historical place?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for this question. I would like to start with something. There is something called water blasting and sand blasting, which is used widely in restoring heritage structures and heritage buildings. If you ask me, it is the right way to do. Few of them may say yes, but it damages the buildings, the sculptures, and all in a very not so right way. In the same way, what is the kind of sanitizing which is to be used? For example, naturally light-based buildings are sterile structures. So, what is the constituent of the sterilization which is to be done, or what is the components of it? What is the chemical constituent of it is very important. And like a lot of other buildings are in threat, heritage buildings, heritage structures are also in equal threat, but they need a little bit more attention because of the materials in which they are done, and also museums, especially because they have a lot of objects, they have a lot of things of value. So the composition of the material in which they are going to sterilize is important, and there needs to be an how do I say, a committee or someone who would take care of them. Important. See, till now, or probably say 10 for the next 3 months also, we won't have time to think about heritage structures or buildings or antiques or so many other things which are happening around, because life is in threat. So they are looked upon as a least priority. But what we should think is there are a lot of livelihood involved in that. There are a lot of people involved in that, and they, for them, we need to actually look into that. And then there is a lot of sensitivity when this sterilization is to be done for heritage structures. Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. There is
Yeah,
another
and
question.
also, yeah, yes.
No, ma'am. Continue, ma'am. So I'm sorry to interrupt. Yes.
No, I just wanted to know if the voice was audible. That's all.
Yes, ma'am. The voice was audible, ma'am. The next question is there any threat for from tourism to cultural heritage?
Okay. I would like to mention it like this. Heritage tourism is also a tool, also a tool for uh, for heritage. Okay, when we look at it as a tool, it can benefit, it can bring economy, it can bring a lot of things. But when I say toll, TOLL, toll plaza, the toll, heritage tourism as a toll, it can bring in potential damage. It can bring in advantage. It depends on what is the crux of the group or the person or the person involved in the tourism management. So that's where heritage ethics plays a major role. What is your crux of it? What is that you want to do? So I think it's more about the vision of the person involved in heritage tourism. So it can either be a tool or it can be a toll. Toll can be advantages or it can lead to a lot of disadvantages, depends on that. So it is a two-way street. It can be a tool, it can be a tool as well. I mean, tool as well. Yes, next question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, tell me. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. 1 minute, ma'am.
Yeah.
Next question is after this lockdown, is there any hope in developing of tourism and heritage? Uh,
Can you
like
repeat
due
the question?
Yes, ma'am. After this lockdown, is there any hope in developing of tourism and heritage? Because people are very scared to go out.
Okay, like I said, there will be a lot of change in the way we deal with touch surfaces and all that. Lot of worldwide museums have gone online. A lot of online exhibitions. There'll be a lot of VR. There'll be a lot of online based and all that. But in that, does that mean there won't be any physical space? No, there will be. This online enticement of potential clients or potential visitors will make them want to visit the museum. For example, you see a lot of beautiful sunrise pictures or beach pictures online about different tourist places. But do we stop with that? As much as we see that, we want to actually go and visit the place, right? So in the same way, that physical presence is used. And also, I feel we forget so many things, right? Eventually, we will start forgetting the dangers of this as well. And potential means getting digital, becoming digital, adapting, and then getting so much into inclusive audio tours, and then VR enabled exhibits, all these no touch surfaces. And in this no touch surfaces, I think there should be a lot of research which talks about, like you said, sterilizing, right? If people who are visually challenged are to come to heritage spaces, braille is one way they can experience it. How is that going to be? Because they have to touch the walls, they have to touch the handrail. So how is that sanitizing going to happen, or what are we going to do? Will there be any instant sanitizing devices coming in? Like I read somewhere that only in terms of crisis, lot of new businesses. Can you hear me? Hello.
Ma'am, there is a slight disturbance in your voice.
From where should I restart? Hello. From where should I restart, Sweta?
No, from the government policy.
From
Hello.
yes. From where should I restart?
From the government steps which have been taken, ma'am.
Okay. So government takes a lot of steps, and people try to adapt. So what we have to do is we have to understand that we will eventually start forgetting this also, but there'll be a lot of products and services based on sanitizing and sterilizing coming on. And like I was telling, I don't know if that was audible earlier, for people who are visually challenged, touch surface are very important. So will there be quick sanitization products, or how many people can come in? So those kind of products and services, and sensitive sanitization for heritage buildings should also be done, because heritage buildings need constant maintenance. If heritage buildings doesn't have air conditioner, that is okay, because most of these buildings are built with natural lighting, natural ventilation, natural acoustic. In that case, the problem is little lesser. But in case if heritage buildings have air conditioners and all that, then the effort should be more. And then how are we going to maintain that, all these aspects? So different services and all that. So there is a lot of potential. And also digital, and then virtual reality, all that would be the next big thing in terms of anything related to heritage. And then it's the right time to tap in that as well. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Ms. Yasin has asked, what is the difference between heritage tourism and ethical tourism?
Okay. How do I say that? For me, anything in terms of heritage and tourism should be ethics. Okay, it's like asking what's the difference between. It's a very important and very relevant question. For me, it is like, who is a person and who's the ethical person. By nature, anything which we do should be ethical, right? It shouldn't be something which is affecting another person or affecting the environment and all that. Heritage tourism is a blanket term for any tourism product or service or related to heritage. It could be your walk to a temple, it could be your tour to Kanchipuram for 4 or 5 days, it could be your textiles tour to some other place, or it could be you talking about different cemeteries in one place. It could be anything. It's a blanket term for any tourism which is aligned or related to heritage. Ethical tourism need not necessarily be only to heritage tourism. It is a blanket term for any tourism product, not necessarily heritage. It can be adventure tourism, it can be environmental tourism, it can be organic trail tourism, so many other types. So that both are two blanket terms for two different uh, ideas. So ethical tourism is more ideology based, which can apply to any kind of tourism. Heritage tourism is this, but importantly, any kind of tourism should be ethical tourism, so that there is a sense of responsibility which is adhered to in terms of your product or service. Yes, I hope that answered your question.
Hope so, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Sriram has asked, what is your suggestion for our Chennai Museum to attract more visitors?
Okay, the project which we showed right in the beginning, that was one way of doing it. But in how do I say that? A place which has continuous activities which is happening, or which will want people to understand. Okay, Monday this is happening, Tuesday this is happening, this is going to happen. So a kind of activities which is happening one and again. And I think recently Instagram attracts a lot of crowd who are below 35. So if you want to tap that particular crowd, Instagram is the best way. I think social media is is giving a potential for so many businesses, and that's one way to tap. And then continuous events happening, people talking about the sculptures, and people, if they see what is in the museum. For example, if I see there is a wonderful app by the Chennai Museum, which is like which is very mobile friendly, and you can see the different sculptures. It's like an audio book. We have used it for our inclusive trails, and it's been a huge thing. And I think already the Madras Museum is in the map potential places people visit. And also, I would like to mention about the different walks which are happening in the city, which are bringing attention to a lot of places. Like Shriram sir has been doing so many walks, and then Padmapriya ma'am has been doing it for the temple. Kombe Anwar sir has done the Ramzan trails, and then the Tinagar trails and all that. And then once Srimati Mohan, she did the Tinagar textile trail, which was very unique thing. And then Nivedita Louis, she did a cement trail, Roypuram trail, and all that. Nandan, who's a history student, he once did a tour of the Georgetown. And then there are so many of them doing very unique trails, which are like they've put in a lot of effort. All the trails which I mentioned done by these people, they are the brainchild of their research. They've done so much research in that. It is not that they read somewhere and created this tour. They did a lot of research work, and then Venkatesh Ramakrishnan sir, and he did the Poem Trail one. So all these people I mentioned, lot of research has gone into that particular heritage walk. It's not just that they do a heritage walk. Their heritage walk is a result of the intensive research and the time they spent on it. So that is why their heritage walks are very unique, and it makes. And Narasaya sirs did the fourth walk, and then Vincent sir did the Fort Walk, George St. George, the Fort Walk, and all these are very unique. And the work which they all did has been an inspiration to a lot of youngsters to find new things and do unique walks, unique products. So all this will interest new set of people to come and understand the different places, to understand how things work, how beautiful certain places are in terms of history. You know a place, and then you know the history of it, you know the social history of it, you know a bit of how things happen, you start respecting the place more. So I think it should not just be a walk or a trail. It should be the result of the intensive research and the background work someone has. So that's how I see heritage walk. Anyone can do a heritage walk, but to do like all of them, you need that intensive research and that rigor to find right, unique information, and then that's when the walk becomes a huge success. So museum walks are a huge thing, and they will attract a lot of people as well. That's what I want to tell. Yes.
The next question is from Mr. Mishra. Does
Hmm.
urban ecotourism exist?
Can you urban ecotourism?
Yes, ma'am.
It depends on where we are talking about it, because when we decode it, urban tourism. Generally, it should be ecology-based tourism, but sadly, most of the urban tourism are economic tourism, where it is based on those. But there are few tours which happen in the Puliket and then in Kerala, in belts of Kerala. All these tours make sure the environment is respected, and also people know what is happening. There are few stakeholders working on this, but your question, there needs to be more people doing it. There are people doing it, there needs to be more people doing it. It shouldn't be just economic, it should also be ecology based.
Um, the next question is from Ms. Anuranjani.
Okay.
What is the condition of heritage structures right now, especially those unattended for more duration, but which
Okay.
needs constant monitoring?
Okay, that's a very important question, because I like how she has split the question into three. Can you repeat the question again
Yes,
so
ma'am.
that everyone will understand? I'll answer in parts. Yeah, repeat it
Yes.
slowly. Yes.
What is the condition of heritage structures right now, especially those unattended for more duration,
Okay.
but which
Hmm.
needs constant monitoring?
Okay, heritage structures which are occupied, heritage structures which are not occupied, which are so you can divide it into three: either occupied or unoccupied, disused, misused, unused. There are three differences. The thing about heritage structures is you keep using it, and then it is kind of way to sustain it. Lot of heritage structures in Chennai sustain because of usage. If it was not used, or if it is in disuse, there should be in that case there is no attention, and then it leads to all the more decay. So you need to use living heritage sustains easier. So when it is not used, most of the time what happens is the regular repeat. See, this is like your any other, you're maintaining your house or your clothes, or how do you maintain yourself, your body? Regular maintenance, regular taking care of. If you don't do it for certain days, then it becomes a huge burden. So any heritage structures need regular maintenance, regular taking care of. Like when you talk about heritage structures, people always talk about dust and cobwebs and so many other things. Okay, or sometimes all these lime plaster walls will have a pulp color. Pulp color is wall, a kind of a dull shade of yellow which you can see on the wall, which people assume is dust, but it is the actual aging process of the wall. Sometimes you can see that color over it, and sometimes there will be dull patches over it and all that. So people, when they look at heritage buildings which are in use, sometimes they think it is dirty, sometimes it is decay. There has been articles which talk about like this heritage building is decaying, this heritage building. The right kind of word usage, even for scholars, is very, very less. So it is the right way to call it is the aging process, because you can't say, for example, a book which is 300-year old, if it is preserved, it will stay for eternity. No, you're just prolonging the life of the book, or prolonging the life of the building, prolonging the life of the antique, prolonging the life of the floor. So regular maintenance, regular collective maintenance is what is important. So this is for buildings which have usage. Buildings which are completely in disuse, yes, saving them is possible, but it depends on the interventions which has happened. And due to modern technologies and due to different opinions from people, a lot of heritage structures have air conditioners, they have ducts running around, they have acoustic panels, they have so many other things. The thing is, we should understand whether it is really needed. For example, lighting in heritage buildings uh, will be based on these will be based on the sun's direction and how it is and all that. But few things which would have changed is, when the building was built, there would not have been any structures around, or there would not have been few trees. But eventually, while the building is growing, there would have been trees, there would have been new buildings, there would have been new structures around. So what we should understand is, okay, there is too much lighting in a structure. Should we close all the windows? Should we shut all the windows? Should we curtain all the windows? No. The point is to think, how do we work it? So a high resolution projector would actually work, right? So these are very small. It may seem very small detail, okay, but this will actually affect. So instead of making a permanent change or a irreversible change in the structure, it is important to adapt. For this, you can use modern technology. What is to be used, what is not to be used. So in that case, with if a building which is not much in use and not without much intervention, it is easy to be preserved. But sadly, most of the structures, not just public buildings, at least they have some attention. But household heritage residences have very less attention, and they are the maximum troubled in terms of preservation or longer life. Yeah, that was a long answer. I hope that kind of answered it. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. And
Yes. Yeah, tell me.
just yes, ma'am. We have a lot of questions here. I'm
Yes,
just
yes,
taking
yes.
out certain questions because of the time concern.
Hmm.
Um, Ma'am, this is. Okay. Will there be rules and regulations will be applicable to all parts of India where museums is located, or any, or only to a particular state?
Okay. Most of the time, these are state-based decisions, state-based policies, state-based ministry, and the person heading the museum also plays a major role, depending on what is happening in the museums. So most of the time, it is based on all these factors. So there can't be one blanket term of the of overall India. There is it is specific. It is specific. So the ministry can make a decision, but then the state decides on what is to be done. But there should be something which also takes care of heritage. Yes.
Um, this is from Mr. Pranav Kumar.
Mm.
Privatization of heritage palace and monuments are emerging trend by various governments in India. Is this really helping to conserve the heritage properties or just helping some private parties?
Uh, like so many aspects of privatization, if you're just looking at the aesthetics of the place or the exterior beauty of the place and all that, yes, it makes a lot of sense. But is really privatization helping the actual stakeholders, artisans, people related to the heritage structure? That is a big question mark. And I think it depends on also who is the stakeholder involved in the privatization, whether he holds interest. Like there are a lot of heritage structures in India and abroad as well, where a particular association or a group or an organization or a society is have been tenants in heritage building for a long period, and they take care of the heritage structure like their own. So that is also a form of privatization, but that is not exactly like selling the property or making them take care of it. It depends on who is doing it. That will make all the difference.
The next question is Mr. from Kevin.
Hmm.
Uh, museums, as museums goes digital and gives VR experience, will it leads to job loss for people? If yes, how we are going to face that?
Okay, thanks for the question. I think I answered it during the presentation itself. Being in VR, being in digital, it will entice a lot of people to come to museums. It will entice a lot of people to look at museums as a, how do I say, look at museum as a like a potential space and then come. But of course, there could be job losses and all that, but that can't happen in museums or heritage structures because they need actual people to take care of those objects, maintain them, preserve them, create spaces, tours, and all that. But how safely that is to be done is important because, again, I mean, post COVID, I mean, but to me, digital, you can't avoid getting digital. You can't completely close that opportunity because I'm someone who believes that history and heritage with equal rigor and scientific reasoning and scientific research. For example, even our traditional materials and all that, they need to equally have their scientific papers like for any other new material, and they should also have their social media and media presence like the modern materials which happen. So in the same way, we can't say that that can't happen, that can't be there can't be any digital presence. There should be digital presence, but the digital presence should be in certain amount so that people want, if they want to know more, they have to come back to it. And I think when we talk about job losses, there could be options of living museums where people come and understand and realize that human interaction is what people like. So yeah, job losses like in other fields, this will also face a lot of job losses. We did see there a lot much, right? So there will be a lot of job losses. But again, that depends on the head who is running and the people who are involved. I know a lot of businesses who are struggling too much, but so much, but never left their employees or staffs or participants. They made sure they are taken care of. So that happens only when you have an ethical crux to your business.
That's right. Ma'am, the next question is from Mrs. Rajendran.
Okay.
Why are we always missing our local terminologies when we put forward our stories? Why it cannot be in its own skin? Are we still behind the Western contest?
Okay, I don't know which exact context he is mentioning, but I do accept it because coming from an architectural background, working on traditional materials, most of the time, because I'm talking to the artisans, the terminology I use are from the Muka Chengal or Karat Chevra or Kalla Sevra, all that comes from them. But most of the time, people say, okay, can you repeat what we said? Can you? But I make sure I use it because as much as people know what's a 3/4 brick, they should know what is a Muka Chengal. So, but we need proper. We are also working on booklets for children with these. But the first book is already out on traditional building terminologies, traditional city terminologies in Tamil for children. Like we say it's for children, but basically it's for everyone else. We need to start using it more, start writing more research papers on it, start posting more on um, your social media and on larger platforms so that more people start using it. And specifically to his question, later if you can pass on my email ID and all that, I can share all the details we have done. And potentially, if you like to collaborate also, we would love to do that because this is something which we have been working. As local we are, as rooted we are, as much as we can explore outside.
Yes, ma'am, sure. I'll share the email ID with a particular participant. The next question is from
Yeah.
Mr. Ahmed. He is
Okay.
working with Cultural Tourism Board to preserve art, heritage, and culture. So his question is, the tourism department or any other tourism-related agencies are not much interested in promotion of heritage and cultural tourism of our union territories, especially as quoted for Jammu and Kashmir. Our culture is dying at fast. What we have to do for its preservation much better?
Okay. I think.
And
Hmm.
many have asked, mostly from Jammu and Kashmir, the question on how to preserve cultural tourism as well as heritage. That's
Okay,
all.
like I said, cultural tourism is a tool and also a tool. And specifically about Jammu and Kashmir and the other, there is like whenever we speak about Pondicherry, we speak about. Yeah, is my voice audible? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, we talk about Pondicherry, we talk about Pondicherry alone. Okay, but there is Mahe, there is Yanam, the other parts of Pondicherry as well, which we don't talk much. So in the same way, the other union territories also don't have that attention like few of them have, they don't have. So the point is localization is the best way. How are we going to make as much as you involve the local stakeholders, as much as you involve the local artisans, as much as you see culture, it can either be artisans, it can be art, it can be a service, it can be a heritage property, it can be an experience, it can be a trail you're giving them. So tourism has a uh, big list behind it. But when we talk about who are we involving in it, who are the beneficiaries? So once you understand that, once you bring localization is the best way to involve. When you talk about cultural tourism and there is this particular art product which a person does, it is not necessary that product becomes famous, that product is sold. It is important that the artisan is famous. The artisan gets his due credit. Not just famous. Most of the time they get famous, but do they get money? So what is happening in the middle? Where are the who's benefiting in that? So
Ma'am.
art before art. Yeah, can you hear me now? So
Yes, ma'am.
art before artisan is gone now. It should be artisan before art. It should be the cultural stakeholders before culture. So they have been clinging on to it for so long. They are teaching us. They are giving their artwork and all that. So as much as it is localized, start a small cooperative for them so that they are financially stable, and then interacting with them, and then on board, online, all that. These are the things which will help. So as much as you look at yourself as a savior and say, I want to save this art form, I want to save this particular zone. No, you have to be with the. It's not necessary you have to save a big cluster. You have to work with at least two people, two artisans, two artists, two forms of culture get preserved because of you, and those people are benefited. That will make a lot of sense. So a small step uh, makes a huge difference. Yeah. Next.
Yes, ma'am. The next question is from Mr. Ben Frank.
Okay.
Will this heritage tourism reach the next generation as there are threats in terms of virus, nature, earthquake, and also this generation is interested into technology and gadgets and not having interest in these things?
I think as much as this generation is interested in technology, VR, and all that, they're also adventurous. We can see a lot of adventurous sports which are happening. There are a lot of trails, cycle trails, and then a lot of trekking, lot of ecotourism. All that is happening. Yes, it will happen, but it is important for the digital presence to entice them to actually visit the real place. But again, local tourism potential to be increased, like they've done it in Japan, they've done it in a lot of places. I think this is the right time to tap in the potential for local tourism. International tourism may take a little backseat for now, and it is the right time to tap in. Even for the last question, Jammu and Kashmir, it's important to tap in the potential for local tourism where our international travel may be curbed for a longer time. But we have chances to travel within India, like in a year or something, right? So that can be think about different unattended things or things which have not have attention but which are very exciting, which will also help the local economy and all that. So that would be local tourism or rooted tourism, like I would call. Rooted tourism will make a comeback. I think that's how tourism used to be a few decades back, right? Local tourism had a lot of strength. Last 10 years, small packages to different countries had a lot of attention. Now I think the comeback of local tourism will be the biggest takeaway, not takeaway, biggest advantage of no international travels for at least this couple of 2 years or 3 years. Hello? Hello?
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah, I
Hello.
can hear you.
Yes,
Yes.
ma'am. The next question is what are the certain rules and regulations that the central government should bring to all the heritage sites in our country? It's from Mr. Abdul.
Okay. There can't be one common rule for all the heritage buildings. It depends on the age of the building. It depends on the construction pattern of the building. It depends on the usage of the building. So many other things. But what they have already the government. The Madras has a heritage committee which was constituted in 2009, and then there are few rules which are to be followed. All that is available on, and you can check ICNOS India. You can check so many other foundations. But the thing is, what we need now is there are rules. There are so many things, but are we ready to take ownership of as professionals for our local heritage? That is what we need now. We need those kind of localized effort to make a lot of sense. But yeah, government needs to take a lot of steps, but this localized efforts will be the way forward.
That's all the questions are. Okay, this is from Aruna. Hello.
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Tell
ma'am.
me, tell me. I
This
just
is
slowly
from
take notes. Yeah.
this is from Miss Aruna. My
Okay.
question is, okay, what according to you are the major issues and challenges in ethical tourism and the ways to resolve it?
Okay. I see only one major problem. It's what is the vision and what is the ideology of the person or the group or the office or the organization involved in ethical tourism. In tourism, if their crux is involving involving crediting and working with everybody to work on a proper resultant, then anything would be possible. So the kind of crediting, the kind of flat medicine and so many other things. No? So I think if the vision of the company or the person or the organization is based on ethics, then there won't be any issues at all. So I see only that as a problem. If only money is the problem, because heritage is looked upon recently, like two years probably, as something which is money making. You work on something, you work on souvenirs, you work on that, you get a lot of money. That is a new business. Okay, I'm working in heritage, but that's not the case. You work your research, your work should be based on research. Your work should be based on ethics. Your work should be based on importance to people, creating awareness on heritage, understanding heritage narratives. All that is important. So if you look at it just as a business, it will be yet another business. That won't be a long run thing at all, and not just making money. So if that is not there, any kind of product will make a lot of sense.
So that's the last question, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you so much for patiently answering and clarifying all the doubts, ma'am. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you
That
so
was very
much.
nice of you. I call Miss Preeti to give the vote of thanks. Miss Preeti?
I can see so many questions. I will just tell Shweta to share our Instagram and Facebook ID where you can post your questions. It is Namveedu Nampur Nam Kadhai in Instagram. If there are any questions, you can actually, Shweta, I'll share my Instagram link to you. You can
Yes, ma'am,
just
sure.
post it. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am, sure. Miss Preeti?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I've just sent it to Preeti. Preeti, you can post it on the chat box so that they can work it.
Okay.
And thank you so much for patiently reading out all the questions. You have been such a enthusiastic person. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. It's because of you
Thank you.
patiently telling us,
And
explaining us everything.
yeah, thank you. So kind of you.
Yes.
And even though we have not met, now I know that you're one patient teacher.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Miss Preeti, if you could give the vote of thanks.
Yeah, sure. On behalf of my department, Tourism and Travel Management, I would like to extend the gratitude and my thanks to Speaker Architect Tripurasundari Sevvel for accepting our request and addressing the gathering. I also thank all the participants for your presence. Thank you all. Hello.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, thank you, Preeti. Participants, the feedback link has been posted in the chat box. Kindly fill it. And if you have filled